Hi everyone. Today we're talking to Sandya Lang. She's the head of sustainability at Nudie Jeans. And Nudie Jeans is a Swedish denim brand who have a vision of taking responsibility from the raw material to the end of life of the product. Hi Sandya, nice to have you here with me today.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to me. Today, this is the last interview of my mini interview series. And today the focus will be a lot about transparency and achieving transparency in the supply chain and how you as a brand have achieved that. So I'm very excited about talking to you about that today. But first, I want to hear a little bit about you and your background. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I work with sustainability at Nudie Jeans. This is my work since the last 9 years. And before that, I worked with t-shirt production in Sri Lanka and shoe production in Vietnam. So I have a lot of background from the factory floor, basically. And my interest in this field of sustainability sort of began when I was studying and doing my field work in India, interviewing textile workers. And my interest was basically on how Western companies were acting in developing countries and how that was affecting workers. That is a little bit of my background.
And what were the findings of that thesis?
Well, the findings were that at the time, like 10 years back, it was a lot of code of conducts, and the workers didn't really benefit from that, or they didn't really see the connection between the brands and the improvement of the working conditions as such. I think that has been improved over the years, but still there's a lot of things to be improved, of course, in the textile industry throughout the chain. So I think the findings are still relevant today, and something that we all need to think about working in this industry.
Thank you so much for that, for letting me know about your background and everything. And then what about Nudie Jeans? Tell me a little bit about you as a brand and what is so unique with you as well as a brand.
Well, Nudie Jeans was founded about 20 years ago in 2001 in Gothenburg by Maria Eriksson Levin and Joachim Levin, and they also had Palle Stenberg coming in shortly after. And the three owners still work in the daily business. And it's a privately owned company, so independence is really important for us, and that's always been. We like to do things in our own way, and that's also, I think, a major part of why we are quite successful in many ways within sustainability work. We have today an ambition to take responsibility from the cotton fields throughout the whole production and onwards in the user phase. We work with a lot of different projects in different areas, both socially and social and environmental sustainability. We try to have as good customer service as possible for the consumers as well, including the free repair service we have in the stores, selling secondhand, and also recycling projects.
Okay, and this mission of yours, or this vision to take a responsibility throughout the whole chain, is that something new, or is it something that has kind of been with the company from the beginning?
It's definitely was one of the reasons why the company was started. Maria, who was a chief designer of another denim brand at the time, she wanted to start Nudie with to do something else, to have a more of a holistic view of the product, to take responsibility for both the social and environmental aspects, even though we have, of course, structured the work a bit differently now compared to 20 years ago. So of course it's a little bit different now than it was before, but the ideas of taking responsibility for the product has always been there.
Interesting. And I also know that you publish all of your suppliers online, and not just your tier one suppliers as many brands, maybe that's a little bit more of the norm today, but you go even further and you publish actually all of the suppliers within the whole supply chain, including the raw material farms and so forth. Can you please tell me a little bit about that process and how you have been able to achieve such in-depth transparency?
So the work of becoming more and more transparent, I would say, started off with us consolidating our supply chain for many, many years. We were quite early on by doing social auditing in the supply chain, including tier 1 and 2 in Italy and Portugal, for example, which was at the time quite unusual, at least. We have a sourcing policy which regulate which countries we would like to produce in, and which suppliers we would like to produce with. I think that combined with all the hard work that we have done over the years also enable us now to be in the front and showing our supply chain and being honest about the situation at the suppliers.
And so how often do you do this type of mapping? Like, how often do you make sure that it's being updated and so forth?
It's a constant work, I would say. We work with 4 collections a year. So for each collection, we have this kind of work where we upload our information in our production guide that we have online. So not only do we have the full supplier list online that you mentioned, we also have a production guide where we have more visual description for the customer, where they can find information about the producers that made the jeans. So it's made by the categories for jeans, for jackets, and for shirts, and so on, and where you can find all the information about the suppliers in there. And for some suppliers, there are audit summaries to download, where we have both the positive and less positive aspects of the findings, and also some words about how we try to work with it. And we believe that transparency is not only about showing the good things in the supply chain, of course, but also to show the challenges, because there are many, not only in the high risk countries, but also in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And how have you gone about it, or how do you go about it when you map these things? Do you nominate a lot of the suppliers upstream, or do you just ask? Do you only buy from the tier 1, nominated tier 1, and then ask them who they are buying from and so forth, or how do you actually go about it?
Yeah, so I mean, we have from the very start not worked with so many suppliers, so it's fairly easy for us to have this kind of control, I would say, compared to many other bigger brands, of course. But for each of the product, of course, you need to know your exact suppliers. So we have our tier 1 suppliers where we have long-term relations. We have worked with them, some for actually almost 20 years now. And then we also nominate the fabric suppliers. We nominate the trims. We nominate everything that is possible to nominate, basically. And we even have specified which cotton farmers that we want to source from. For example, in India, we had collaboration with the Chetna Organics Farmer Association. So by those actions, I think we are able to have a more control over our supply chain. We also in one way, not to give too many options to the supplier to deal with our production. And in some, it costs also more, of course, to nominate and have certain criteria for our materials. It needs to be organic, and it needs to be of sustainable origin, and so on and so forth. But I think all of these requirements also made us quite comfortable with the production that we have today. We have well selected suppliers. Many of them are vertical, so it also means that there's not so many sub suppliers as it is in Europe, for example. It's very common to have a lot of different units making a lot of different things in the production, like different steps. While in Tunisia and in India, for example, we work with vertical factories, which is, from a sustainability point of view, easier to monitor and control and follow up and so on. But also from product development side, I guess that's also helpful.
And then, so tell me a little bit about this sourcing policy as well. I think that sounds very interesting. Can you just tell me a little bit about what that includes and what type of direction that gives you?
Yeah, exactly. So from the very beginning, our owners had an idea of having production only in Portugal and Italy. It was for because it was easier and easy to travel to these countries, and we have some sort of like cultural ideas that are shared, maybe. But then after some years, the company developed, and we needed to source different kind of production in different countries for the development of the products as well, and to have some options to the Portuguese production, for example. And when we did that, we also became aware, of course, of all the risk in the supply chains in different countries. We wanted to keep the production as close to Europe as possible, but still with the possibilities of getting other products and other additional values. For example, in India, we have this living wage program that we work with a long time. We have fair trade, organic cotton, and so on. But the sourcing policy was sort of a development of those thoughts, and also an idea of creating maybe a box, you can say, for the designers and the product developers to play within. So from a sustainability point of view, we have set up different criteria from the for the countries that we source from, and also for the production units that we are thinking about enrolling in our program of production. And the criteria that we base this sourcing policy on is different indexes. We have the Human Development Index, we have the Democracy Index, we have Anti-Corruption Perception Index, Climate Index, and so on. So all of this combined is creating a score, and we have different score for different countries, basically. And it means also that some countries are not okay to source from. We have, for example, China, Bangladesh, and Pakistan that are not meeting up to our criteria for sourcing country for us.
And does that sometimes create a conflict internally, that maybe the sourcing team or the product development team, they want to kind of look at those countries? Does that happen?
Maybe today not so much. Over the years, yeah, it definitely happened. And we can still have some discussions sometimes about certain materials or certain production units and so on. I think today, though, we are all agreeing on the fact that it's very convenient for us to have a short chain of suppliers, and not too many countries to work with. Today I would say it's not that kind of same discussions anymore, but maybe in the very beginning, when everyone was sort of adjusting to the new policy and so on, it was sometimes that we had these kind of conversations. Yes.
Okay. Another thing that I was thinking about is you're saying that you would like to take responsibility throughout the whole chain. How does that responsibility actually manifest itself? Do you also conduct similar audits and so forth as you do in your tier 1 along the whole chain, or does it differ depending on whereabout you are operating, or whereabout in the chain you are?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we are members of Fairware Foundation. It's a third-party organization. So when we are a member of Fairware, you need to also audit your supply chain. And they actually have the scope of the ready-made garments. So everything from tier 1 and 2, basically, where the production takes place, including like.
And when you say tier 2, do you mean the fabric mills, or is it the
No, actually, it's the laundries, the printer houses, the embroideries, and so on. Yeah.
Okay.
So we audit all of them, and also the tier 1 suppliers, of course. But in some cases, we also audited the fabric suppliers for the denim fabrics mainly, both in Turkey and also Italy. We have started to. Of course, we have visited all of our suppliers, first of all down to the cotton farms.
Okay.
But we have not really managed to audit all of them in the more fragmented supply chains. The denim supply chain is fairly easy in a way. It's not too many steps. But for other products, it's a little bit more fragmented, and there we have not yet been able to do the audits yet. Probably we will, but it's also a matter of priority, I guess. And now during this year, of course, everything is a bit postponed due to not being able to travel, or even the audit team cannot really perform the audits as normal.
Do you also experience like a lack of leverage the further upstream you come, and then there is a difficulty to conduct the same type of activities as you're doing early on in the supply chain as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we are on the denim side, we are quite strong. I mean, we are a well-known brand and everything. And I think many of the producers also they like to work with us, basically. When it comes to the other products, like the jackets and shirts and t-shirts and so on, the leverage that we have in our suppliers, in our tier one suppliers, could be like 3 or 5% maybe of the total production. So you can imagine if you go upstreams, then it would not be so significant. But still, we have been able to visit all of our suppliers, for example, in India, all the printing houses, the embroidery places, and everything. So we do have that as a mission, to have this personal contact and to have seen the place ourselves, and to do like assessment of our own, at least, for those places.
I think that goes very far. And me personally, I don't really believe in audits as such. I believe more in empowering the ones that are doing well, and rewarding and growing with the ones that are doing well and showing the right mindset type of thing. So so I believe just to have a personal and a good relationship, I think takes you very, very far.
Yeah, I mean, the question of auditing is of course something that we are discussing as well, and as you know, auditing it could be good for one reason maybe, but you also need to work on other measures like trainings and so on, and this is also something that we do within the Fair Foundation framework. So we have trainings for suppliers, for tier one and then tier two, what we call tier two suppliers, and like laundries and printers and so on. And they are sometimes specific for the country, like in India, for example, where we have the anti-sexual harassment training. And it could also be some kind of dialogue training or grievance training and so on. So we try to also use those tools to develop the work we do at our suppliers.
That's great. That's great to hear. And do you have any tips or recommendations for brands, smaller brands or bigger brands, whatever it might be, that wants to achieve a higher visibility and more transparency into their supply chain? What should they think about when they start that journey?
I think maybe first of all, to make sure that decision to become more transparent is well discussed in the company, and have approval from the owners or boards or investors, whatever they have. And then the work of consolidating the supply chain, of course. I mean, first of all, you need to know your product. You need to know how it was produced. So you need to know, like, if you add a print to it, you obviously are going to have a printer house somewhere. If you have different type of prints, like digital and screen printing or whatever, probably it's different units as well. So you need to start to map your factories and all the products that you have, and go as deep as you can, I guess. It's not going to happen like overnight, so you need to take one step at a time, or maybe start with one collection at a time, or something like that. I think also one other important part is to reduce the number of like middlemen or agents, or sort of, if it's possible, and work as much as possible directly with the suppliers, because that is also something that has been a maybe obstacle for us becoming more transparent. Like if we had situations where we worked through an agent, they were not really willing to give us information on the supply chain. I think also you need to be ready to take actions, maybe to be ready to end relationships, maybe if they are not willing to become more transparent, or willing to work with you on those criterias. I think also maybe to be aware that you're going to take some more internal resources to map and keep track of the full supply chain. You need to have a good system for your products, where you can also upload supply chain information. And I think also that being transparent, meaning that you need to also reveal some maybe less positive aspects as well, not only the positive ones.
How do you, I mean, thank you, that was a great list of recommendations, really very practical and very good. And have you noticed any difference in approach from consumers or customers and media and so forth since you started to share so much information?
Actually, we released this production guide that we have online in 2013. So it was quite many years ago.
Yeah.
And we at the time, I think it was around the same time was when everyone else was starting to publish their supplier lists. Basically, we took it one step further to give more, information to the consumers. But to be honest, we didn't have that kind of massive request from the consumers or questions afterwards. I think most of our consumers were just quite happy to see that we were providing all of this info, not necessarily asking questions about each and every supplier or something like that. So I think consumers are more and more interested in transparency, of course, and they need to know where the products are made and under what conditions. But I don't think that they need to necessarily have interest in reading everything about it. Or some have, of course, but not all of them. So.
But you would say that the downsides or the negative sides, because maybe there are brands out there that are a little bit hesitant, they're a little bit afraid of, sharing all and disclosing this type of information. Also, if you go so further upstream, you would kind of say that there is no real risk in doing that, or you haven't experienced the risk doing that. It has been more a positive thing for you rather than a negative thing.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, if you do your work first, if you have been to the factory, you know the situation, you know also the challenges that they're facing, and the challenges that we're facing together, maybe, I think it's easier to talk about it as well. Of course, you have all these kind of problems in the supply chain, that is well known. But I think the main question is how you work with it and how you work to improve it. So I don't think that you should be too afraid to just reveal it, but maybe you need to have a strategy on how to handle it as well. For example, we have recently just engaged with a organization in Turkey to monitor and support the cotton farmers there, to have a grievance channels basically for the part of the supply chain that is not really known today for many brands. And this is, of course, we have a policy already, we had for some years now for concerning the modern slavery in our supply chain possibly. And but if you only have a policy and not real work on it, then how can you ensure that this is not going on? So by taking actions and also engage in collaborations with other brands or other industry partners. In this case, it's another denim brand and another one of our fabric suppliers that are also a part of this initiative. I think together we can also work to mitigate those risks, and also to work on improving non-compliances if found.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think collaboration is the only way forward for the industry. But it also seems to me, hearing you speak, I also know that you don't have a very big team. I know you have an idea of integration so that everyone works on sustainability, but your sustainability team is fairly small. Is that putting up any limitations? Because it sounds like quite a lot of engagement. You have to visit all of these places, and you have to do these active engagements and so on. So how have you handled that?
Yeah, of course, that's a challenge. We are a small team on one hand, but on the other side, we are a very committed brand. I think everyone in the company is really committing to sustainability and working with sustainability in their own roles, in their own departments, whether it's product development or e-commerce or finance, for example. They all have a very important part of the sustainability work that we do at Nudie Jeans. So of course we could achieve even more if we were many more people, of course.
Yeah, of course. Of course, thank you. But I think that's key, to integrate the question into the organization so that everyone feels this responsibility and everyone can do it. Thank you so much for that. And then my final question is more about the future. And how do you think that, I think just in general then, how do you think that the fashion industry will look like in, let's say, 10 or 15 years time in terms of transparency?
Well, I think and I hope that transparency and traceability will becoming the norm. I think customers are requesting more and more to know what they're buying. Maybe the same demands that we have with food items today. I think also like circular activities, repair, reuse, rent or resell or whatever, is becoming also something that becomes normal. So all companies have more or less the same kind of services. This is also about transparency. Like you need to maybe you could be a customer that has a great interest in knowing how many repairs has this jeans been having before I bought it in the reuse section, for example. Some customers, I think, will appreciate that kind of information. So with technology and also with different circular activities, I think we could provide a lot of transparency to the consumers in the future. And besides that, I think quality probably will win over quantity in the future. And hopefully a lot of consumers can do better research when purchasing something that might be a little bit more expensive when you purchase it, but you can be sure that it's made of the best possible materials and the best possible conditions, and you can wear it for a very long time. So that's my hope, at least.
Yes, thank you. I think that's a very good ending note. And I share your hopes there in the future. I hope that's also the future for our industry. So thank you so much for today sharing all of this useful information with me. And I'm sure that there's a lot of brands out there listening to this that will find this very useful as well.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.